So we're going to talk about what is a way home. Then we're going to talk about what we're hoping to achieve and how we are getting there, right? That shift to prevention is really important. So we're a national coalition, and we say we're reimagining solutions to youth homelessness through transformations in public policy, in practice, so in service provision. And so in 2015, we decided we have to do more. And the only way that we can do more is together. And so we decided to use the collective impact lens for all of our work. And we're going to talk a lot about collective impact and why it's so damn difficult. We got all of the national organizations that work on housing and homelessness under the same umbrella. And to align strategy, to align resources, and to learn how to play together better. Because it's very difficult. Everyone's doing their own thing, shooting off duty. One of the key groups is the National Learning Community on Youth Homelessness. So these are service providers, a network from across the country that Away Home now manages. And these wonderful service providers are really key stakeholders in the coalition. Because in order to get to prevention, they have to transform their service. And that's very difficult. We're going to talk about that too. And then also, right from the beginning, we were able to get governments. So in Canada, we have provinces, and most of the activity in terms of public policy that concerns youth homelessness would happen at the provincial level. And so provinces are very important. And so right out the gates, we got one of the provinces, Alberta, to sign on as an official partner of the coalition. And since then, we've just been bringing more and more governments to be part. Because if you've ever worked in government, you know that people in government want help, they want support to develop solutions. So one of our most important things that we do as a coalition is we want evidence to drive everything that we're doing in terms of policy recommendations, practice, and community systems planning. And so the Canadian Observatory on Homelessness, Steve's organization, has been so important for our work and we spent so much time together that this summer we got married. That's a true story. But it's really important because we often don't evidence doesn't drive what we're doing. It doesn't. And so this is critical. Do you want to speak about this?
And that's coalition work in action. I just want to say.
Yeah. Sacrifice.
So the Canadian Observatory on Homelessness is a think tank similar to the European Observatory. And so our mission is to work in collaboration, always in collaboration, to conduct and mobilize research on homelessness so that it has an impact on policy and practice. And so we organize our work around a number of thematic areas, youth homelessness being one of them, and prevention being one of them. And so our work in Canada is to contribute to the transformation of how we respond to homelessness, because what we're doing by and large in Canada is not only ineffective, I think we could argue that it's harmful to young people. And so that's our task. And that's why Away Home was formed, because we had to work beyond the sector, beyond the researchers. We had to work collectively if we're going to really transform this system.
Some of the most important learning is about making sure that lived experience is guiding everything, right? And so we were working with a group of young people that had experienced homelessness in British Columbia, in a smaller city called Kamloops. And when they made their strategy, they had two options for names, and one of them was Away Home. And they said, what do you think? Which one do you like? And I said, well, I like Away Home. And they said, yes, because home means different things to different people, and there's more than one way to get there. I think it's very positive, and so I think what we have to offer is to share everything that we produce and to learn from all of you. So that's what it is, it's a movement. So it's not, in Canada, we set up Away Home. We're a nonprofit organization, but we have a 10-year mandate, and then we're shutting down. Because if we can't organize and move things along in 10 years, we need to go bye-bye. Because we're making too many institutions off of the homeless people. That's sometimes not popular for me to say that, but that's what I think. Yes? And so when I say tools and resources, Steve's organization specializes in knowledge mobilization and helps us develop all of these wonderful tools and resources that we can share. And one of the things that we'll talk about later is the Youth Homelessness Community Planning Toolkit. Because in your endeavors, what you're about to do in Antwerp, it's all focused on how to give you tools for the local context. So some people, when they hear this, they think, well, yeah, collective impact. We're working together for impact. We're already doing that. And so this is, what they say in Canada. We've been doing this for 25 years, Melanie. Well, have you really? So we're going to talk a bit about it because it's really important in thinking about working across the systems and not just thinking about service providers. Because as service providers, we can never see the change we need to see alone. One of the things that's really key about collective impact is you're working together toward a population level outcome. So it's not individual outcomes. Yes, of course, we want to see better outcomes for individual young people, but we want to see a population level outcome, which is we're driving down the numbers initially of care leavers who ever experience homelessness and who are left unsupported. So if you're thinking in your organization, you have a specialized agenda. You have a mission for your organization. The key for collective impact is we have to get over to this movement building paradigm, which is different than my organization, my mission. This is what is our vision for change. And so I think a lot of you are already doing this work with Mind the Gap. What's our vision? And then from fragmented measurement, where, like in my organization, we evaluate the work of our organization. That's different for collective impact. So how do you know that there's a change in Antwerp, right? You're going to have to figure out what are your measurements together. And it's not just for your organization, it's for Antwerp. How are you engaging in shared measurement? And then, moving from sporadic communication, sometimes we talk, sometimes we meet, to having very consistent and intentional communication to your stakeholders internally and externally. And then finally, it's really important that somebody's driving the bus. So for your effort with Mind the Gap, you've got to have somebody providing the backbone support to move the agenda along. And so, for people who've been doing this work for a long time, you've probably been engaged in a lot of these things, but collective impact just says you have to pull all those together. What happens when you have 3 of them, but not 2 of them? You don't move forward, right? So it's really important. So we're going to deep dive just a little bit, and we were asked to really focus in on collective impact because it's kind of a game changer when you really get the pieces. Okay.
The key with that whole notion of collective impact is to get away from thinking about an organization and move to thinking about a movement. And that's tough work, right? Because we're taught and rewarded to think like an organization. Our organizations, we work for an organization, we have a mission, we have activities we engage in. If you think like a movement, the movement supersedes, the movement is more important than your organization, and that's one of the tough things to change. So 4 preconditions for collective impact. The first is influential leaders. In the communities that are able to do this well, there has to be strong leadership. And the leadership has to be not only buy into the philosophy of collective impact, they have to live it and demonstrate it, right? So the leadership should not be doing all the work to bolster their own organization. It's to go beyond that. A sense of urgency. Well, this is really important too because things move really slow in this world. Social change crawls along. And so when you will hear us when we talk about things, how we will say, like, it's just not okay, the current situation, right? Like, we have to change the situation. It is urgent because the slower we go, the more lives that get damaged by youth homelessness. So the next one is building trust, and that's a really challenging thing. So we live in the city of Toronto where there are 9 organizations that serve young people who experience homelessness. They've been meeting together, the EDs, for 25 years, and they still don't trust each other, right? And so to make that leap forward to collective action means a lot of unlearning and a lot of letting go, and what we'll be talking about later in terms of specialness. And then finally, adequate resources, which is everybody complains that they don't have the resources necessary to do their work, right? The world of homelessness is not always well funded. Part of the problem is where the funding goes, right? Like, how do you get the right funding in the right place to achieve the right outcomes? There's some interesting work coming out of the United States that's showing, we were talking about this last night, that's showing that an investment in prevention, and this would be something that in Australia you would have landed on before, investing in prevention actually costs a lot less money than the emergency response, but even less money than housing first, right? And yet, that's where in Canada, the investment in prevention is like this. So, we're going to talk about some essential mind shifts for collective impact, and this comes from the Stanford Social Innovation Review, so I'll reference that. The first one is who's involved. Who's not there right now that you need there? That's going to be a key thing. You have to agree to work towards a common goal. And one of those things is going to be, Melanie's going to talk about this more, is a shift that's going to happen in terms of systems integration. Now, as I mentioned in Toronto with the 9 organizations, it's a fragmented non-system. You have a bunch of different service providers, and what we need to do is move towards a new approach that where the services, the homelessness services, work as a system. But that is not enough either, because you will not end homelessness if we don't address the drivers of homelessness. So that means we also have to engage mainstream services in the work and systems. Not only that, we need to bring in some unusual suspects. Organizations, people, sectors that we often don't invite to the table when we want to address youth homelessness. And then finally, work with governments and funders so that policy, practice, and funding aligns with what we want in terms of change. That's system integration.
And I think one of the things we forgot to mention at the beginning is a key stakeholder in our coalition is something called the Away Home Youth Homelessness Funders Table. So we have all of these foundations, philanthropy, many sitting at the table together, and they're not there to give us money, though some of them do give us money. They're there to align their efforts as funders with our efforts in terms of prevention. We worked with the Home Depot Canada Foundation. It's the largest funder of youth homelessness in Canada. And they're, do you know hardware stores like do-it-yourself, fix your house stores? They have these all over Canada. And we worked with them to develop a prevention funding stream so that now they're incentivizing prevention with their funding. And so that's the kind of thing that we're talking about.
That's exactly it. And so that's an unusual suspect, at least in Canada, it wouldn't be seen. So the second one is how we work together. So the first thing is the relational is as important as the rational, like the relationships you build. You need the conceptual part, you need the ideas, but it's the relationships. If we want to get to that trust building, these are the things we need to build. One of the things at the bottom here that I think is really important, shared credit is more important than taking credit. Now, how progress happens, right? You're going to be hearing about some interesting prevention models today. And one of the things to know is that they don't come out of a box. Now, they've evolved over time and they continue to evolve. The more we work with David on upstream, the more it's just evident how it's a living organism, not a set program. And so that evolution is going to be important, especially as we move into the realm of prevention, where there's not a lot of publicly shared information about how that works. Look for silver buckshot instead of silver bullet, meaning that don't put your whole system transformation agenda onto one thing, because you'll need different things to work together. You'll need to, if you want to work on prevention, it also means you need to work on supporting people to exit who are currently homeless, to exit homelessness in a way that is sustainable and also leads to wellness. So all of these things are really important.
So yeah, the dark side of collective impact, and some of the stuff we already talked about, but I think it's important to highlight. The specialness disease, that's what we call it. It's this disease where I'm special, I'm special, I'm special. No, if we're gonna get the job done, nobody can be special, right?
And what we mean by that is this, that in Canada, in Toronto for instance, every organization will say this: we're the innovators, we're dealing with the toughest clients, we're doing all the heavy lifting, everyone else is what we call in Canada creaming, taking the easy clients. And so we should be leaders, right? And of course that's not true, but it's like, it's part of like the culture of organizations. It's not the fault of people. It's like in any sector you will get this, right? But it's something that you really have to overcome, because you can't get to collective impact unless we let go of the sense that our organization is the most important organization